I guess we've wrapped up this story. You've already got it written.
Wait just a second, Shaggy. We've only dealt with news writing. Besides the news stories and advertisements, there's a lot more that goes into a newspaper. This locker fire story could easily develop into other articles.
Oh, yeah?
Sure. To begin with, feature stories are very important to newspapers.
Is feature writing different than straight news writing?
Right. It's more flexible in its style. You see, most features have an emotional or human interest appeal.
Oh, I get you. The style of writing should play up those points, right?
Yes, features are not usually written quite as concisely as straight news. Sometimes even a conversational tone or a narrative approach, like in a short story, is used.
It sounds like features are wide open.
Yeah, wide open.
Not exactly. The subjects and writing style are flexible. Features, like straight news, however, should still be factual, accurate, and informative.
What different kinds of articles are classified as features, Velma?
There are all kinds. News features deal with news, of course, but they look at some of the emotional aspects of the story. There are also other types. Personality features let the reader meet an interesting human being. An investigative feature reveals facts about a story a reporter has ferreted out. Informative features explain issues and events to readers. Historical features and interviews are two more types that fall under the feature classification.
Does a feature still have a lead paragraph?
It sure does, but the lead is used more to emotionally involve the reader than to begin summarizing the story.
What about the 5 W's and H?
Yeah, 5 W's and H.
All those questions should be answered somewhere in the body of the story.
Did you say this locker fire incident might also work into a feature?
Sure. The paper could run a story on how one of the students lost a homework assignment in the fire. While one student's homework isn't hard news, it does have emotional appeal, especially among our readers.
I see.
Sports stories can be considered features if they're not dealing with game coverage or news developments.
Lots of times I see crossword puzzles and stuff like that in newspapers.
Puzzles, comics, verse, and short stories are common features. So are columns on such subjects as health, cooking, travel, hobbies, and other interests.
I like comics.
Usually a school paper is limited on space, and these type features are used sparingly.
Say, how about pictures? They're worth 1,000 words, you know.
1,000 words?
You hit it on the head, Shag. Sometimes a good action photograph and a cut line are enough to tell a whole story. A cut line is the caption. It explains the photo and identifies the people in the picture. It usually answers most of the 5 W's and H.
Well, at least there's nothing tricky about pictures.
Not so fast, Hotshot. There are a couple of points to remember.
Like what?
Pictures used with stories should be of good, clear quality and easily recognizable as to what they show. They should also be placed in good relationship to the story they illustrate. Also, a good action shot is better than a dozen posed pictures.
I think cartoons and pictures really add interest to a paper.
That's true, both from their content and the way they make the paper look if they're distributed well.
Well, I guess that wraps up newspaper content.
Hold it, Shaggy. We haven't talked about one of the most important areas of a newspaper, the editorial page.
Editorial?
Right. In an editorial, a writer or staff takes a stand on an issue. Then the facts and arguments are presented. Finally, the writer tries to convince the reader of an opinion or prompt him to action.
Wow, that sounds pretty straightforward.
Remember, Shaggy, in news reporting, objectiveness is the goal. This is even true for the most part in features. In an editorial, however, there must be favoritism. Once the position has been decided on, the editorial should be of conviction and courage.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Editorials can criticize, advocate, endorse, defend, praise, predict, or attack.
How are editorial subjects selected?
One way is to ask 3 questions. Is the issue going to directly affect the reader? Is the issue an important one? Is the issue one on which the paper wants to or feels it needs to take a stand?
Have you got an example?
Usually, newspaper editors or staffs meet in an editorial board to decide what their policy will be. But look at this story we're on, the locker fires. That incident could prompt an editorial urging more night security at the school.
I see.
Wow, yeah.
The editorial page also carries other opinion-oriented pieces. The editorial cartoon is a visual editorial. It makes people think about an issue and take sides. Reviews of books, movies, plays, television, and music also allow a writer to inject his personal opinion.
Any more?
Letters to the editor are usually placed on the editorial page. These letters often express people's opinions in opposition to those opinions expressed in the paper's editorials. The paper is encouraging discussion by publishing these opinions. Sometimes the paper doesn't have space to print an entire letter. When a letter is cut down, however, it should never be distorted.
There sure is a lot more than news in a newspaper.
Sure is.
I think you two are catching on to the Fourth Estate.
Fourth Estate?
That's a nickname for journalism.
That sounds like a pretty fancy title. Don't get vain, Velma.
Don't worry, you'll never catch this journalist with her nose stuck up in the air.
Oh.